I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. I want to be surrounded by nothing but positive people. And I just want to inspire people. And I want to make a bunch of money. And I want the money to represent something that I passionately believe in that I would do for free. Just show me a sign.
Today's guest, again, if you followed me on Instagram, you've seen my brother Garrain Jones showing up prominently. He and his wife Blair moved here to Austin the beginning of November. In the very first night you were here, we were together.
Yeah, we met each other.
Yeah, we were at our friend Justin's place and had we're gonna get into the intro stuff eventually and all that, but maybe just to land everybody like how we connected. I mean, we both separately had this feeling when we met that we talked about subsequently, that there was like a love.
Yeah, it was
there was
like
a tenderness.
a welcoming, not like trying to be somebody else, but like you just know when you can be around people and you feel like you've known them for years. There's just that, energy can't be created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred. But when that transfer of energy starts to amplify between one and another person, the soul's just like saying, yay, yay, this is your person. These are your people. So yeah.
Yeah, and that night we had no idea how that would unfold over the next couple of months. Holy shit.
Right. No idea.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
Which we will get into certainly during this podcast.
Top of the mountain.
Yes, dude. That is so special. But yeah, let's maybe get into what brought you here to Austin.
There's so many different variables. One, I was born in Houston, Texas, and I know why I moved away. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and everything, I just felt freer to be more of my artist and expressive self without like being judged by people, because there were so many different variations of people. Like the diversity was crazy. And I never thought I would get married in my life. I was like literally the single man.
Really?
For real, the single man. I had an issue with being in committed relationships until I met my wife, Blair. And that experience was confirmation of what I used to think was fake. When people say, when you know, you know, I knew that she was the one. It was like a portal opened up, and I could literally see her be the mother of our children, or be my wife. And I was like, yo, this is weird, because I've never felt this way about any other woman. And so as we are we're already married, we're starting to talk about family. It's like, do you want to raise kids in LA? And I'm like, no. And she didn't. And she moved to LA for me, but she never wanted to live in LA. She's a small town girl. She's from Minnesota, grew up on a farm. I've lived in New York City. I've lived in Miami for a little bit, Los Angeles. And I just love being around lots of people. And I love being by myself a lot too. So ultimately, it was Blair's persistence in wanting to be in a place that had community, so that, because she was that forward thinker, thinking about the kids who aren't here yet. And I was thinking about me right now. So ultimately it was my wife, Blair.
Yeah. And you also, and you've lived in these places, but you had a pretty, let's call it, prolific career in the entertainment industry, as a musician, as a model. And so how did that what was it like to step away from that? And I know that's a bit in your past, but did it feel really good to like almost close the chapter on that, or is it closed? Like, how do you look at that kind of part of your life? Do you see it in the future?
100% see it in the future, but the way in which I did it before was very unhealthy because it's very image driven and not like just being basking in the field of joy. And I was just doing it. Maybe they'll think I'm popular because I wasn't popular in school. So everything that I did, and it served me to a certain point. However, at what cost? Me not being my authentic self. So everything that I did was to try to fit in to a specific group of people. I wanted to become a millionaire so I can be seen as this millionaire. And it ain't it. It really is not it. It's like I ultimately wanted to see myself. So over I overcompensated in all these other areas of my life so that people could see the image that I wanted to show them, but it was also distracting me from seeing who I really was deep down on the inside that I did not love, that did not like, honestly, sometimes wish wasn't even here on this earth.
Mm.
So just that in itself, but the things that I loved, I actually loved those. It was the way I went about it. Like I would get back into entertainment. The modeling things, I wouldn't go on any more auditions. It's like you're going to direct book me for something.
Sure.
However, entertaining, being on stage, being on TV, um, being in radio, those kind of things, that's something that comes it's like second nature to me, and it's a way for me to relay a message in a way to touch people and be the voice of the voiceless. So it's always going to be a part of me, but it's kind of like if you've ever done martial arts, it's like you take one belt, and then once you graduate from that belt, you take that discipline to the next deal. You take that discipline to the next class of belts. Well, everything that I learned from vocal production, writing, producing, somewhat engineering, modeling, acting, all of those things, when I found my thing, I was able to bring all of those values and put it into one because most people they just study for the one thing. You run track, you just practice track, that's it. But if you notice a lot of the people that really get ahead than more than most people, they've got all these extra disciplines that they've gotten from other areas that they've had in their life. They just know how to translate it and provide that value. So it's always going to be a part of me, but my approach will be way different.
Yeah, we'll get very much into how that approach is different in a little
Yeah.
bit. But I think it's important. We've all had our share of adversity. We all have our story that's shaped us, the wounding and such. But yours is different. Yours is yeah, it's you've had some life experiences that people can't imagine. And so I would love for you to just share some of that as a way to how it's shaped you, how you've told me like you don't wish any of it differently because
Yeah.
all that shitty stuff, the
Yeah.
hard stuff
Absolutely.
is what brought you to this moment today,
Yeah.
to who you are. And so just share in whatever way you feel,
Okay.
you feel called to.
I will share. I could write a book on my life from the ages 1 through 5.
Mm.
That's how the adversity has always been a part of my life, but I use that as a superpower now. Um, you know, I was 4 years old and my parents were separating, and I remember my mom saying, "Choose which parent you wanna go with." A 4-year-old choosing which parent. So it's like that was devastating. And my father being murdered when I was 12 was devastating. Me going in and out of juvenile because I was hanging out with the kids that would show me the only kids that would show me attention, which was the gang bangers and drug dealers and people that were always in fights. I never did those things, but those are the people who took me in. So I did the stuff that I knew I could do, which was breaking into cars, breaking into houses, and things like that. So I'd say when I was 12, there was a these three adults that tried to drown me in this bayou, and somehow I just made it. I made it. I pulled myself up through the tunnel that was going to suck me in, and I was like in the current. It was the craziest thing in the world, and all of those things that happened to me when I was a little kid, it just taught me not to trust, because every time I just put myself out there, it was almost like somebody was letting me down. Like, trust your, trust people that are older than you. But all the older people were fucking me over and
Mm.
like doing crazy shit. I was molested when I was 13, and just going in and out of juvenile, in and out of jail, getting F's on my report card, just never really applied myself, and even dealing with a learning disability. Like, I had a speaking impediment when I was younger, and what also I was diagnosed with delayed learning. So what would normally take you 4 days to learn would take me 6 months to learn, and it's still there today. But I found a way to focus on being efficient rather than being fast. And so it could seem like it's fast. I just don't miss any steps. You see what I'm saying? So there was that, and how I learned how to teach myself how to speak, and now I'm a global speaker. Go
Mm.
figure.
Yeah.
Because I stopped listening to what everyone else told me who I was, and I start telling myself who I was, and authoring a different pattern for my life. Well, if you don't know any better, you're going to continue to adopt the same principles that you lived by when you were a little kid into your adult years. Adults are deteriorated children. And so it just got to the point where I was just going through life, sleeping around, going to from girl's house to couch. And I ended up having a girlfriend in France. She left to go out of town. I met up with these guys. Next thing you know, I spend my next 2.5 years in a French prison because I found myself smuggling drugs and into different countries and things like that. But I ended up getting caught. So they got me for a 12-year sentence. I ended up serving 2.5 years. I get out, spend the next 7 years. I was just like, yo, like, life is too fast. I don't know how to keep up. And then finally one day, he's like my play brother. He's a comedian named D. Ray Davis. He's like, man, you can stay at my place. Like, I give you money. I'll drive you wherever you want to go. He was like, you want to do music, right? I was like, yeah. He was like, don't come home unless you have a song. I'm like, wait, I don't know any producers. He was like, I'll drive you everywhere you want to go. I'll get you clothes, food. You have a place to stay. You're a singer. You're a singer. You say you want to be a singer, right? Yes. Don't come home unless you have a song. 30 days, I had 28 songs.
Jeez.
And you know what I did? I went on MySpace and I messaged 1,000 people. Hey, I'm a singer. Hey, I'm a singer. And something happened to me inside of the fear of missing out. So either people are focused on the possibility of gain or the fear of missing out. That fear of missing out was like, man, I just want a place to sleep. That in 30 days, I had 28 songs. A month later, I had a $500,000 record deal with Ludacris over at DTP Def Jam because of the songs I had just recorded. So there was that journey. That didn't end up working out because I felt myself losing myself to be something that somebody else wanted me to be instead of being my authentic nature. And I ended up leaving that label. And when I left, I wasn't making any money. I had all the talents in the world, but life just became harder and faster and harder and faster. And I was like, you know what? Everything is being taken away from me. But the only thing I have is the car that I bought from the money that I was making from the record industry. I was like, I have my friggin' 2000, what was it, 2011? No, 2007 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. And I'm in my car and I was like, I don't have a place to stay. I don't have money. I can barely afford child support, but at least I have my car. So for the next 2.5 years, I was living in my car, sleeping in an abandoned building, sleeping on bubble wrap. And I put on 40 pounds. My mom was dying in the hospital. My daughter pretty much disowned me because I wasn't showing up like I could have shown up as a father. It's like, how can you love when you don't even love yourself? So I didn't even know. And it was just like my girlfriend had just broken up with me because I couldn't get my life together and I couldn't model anymore because I was too heavy. And I was just like, fuck, man, like, damn, I have so much talent inside of me. Like, how are all these people just winning in life? Like, and then one day it was 3:43 in the morning, August 2011. I was sitting on the corner of La Brea and Hollywood in my Jeep. And I just threw my hands up in the air and I just started crying and cursing. I was like, okay, I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. I want to be surrounded by nothing but positive people. And I just want to inspire people. And I want to make a bunch of money. And I want the money to represent something that I passionately believe in that I would do for free. Just show me a sign. And this is where I close it. A week later, I'm at a gas station and I meet this homeless guy who asked me for money. And I say, you have more money than me. And he said, change your mindset, change your life. And he just walks away. And it was in that moment right there. And it wasn't just his words, it was the energy behind his words and the fact that life had stripped everything away from me enough to be so humble that I could hear a message from a homeless guy to change my mindset and it would change my life. So in that moment, it was like a broken record. It's like my mind, if I change what I'm thinking about, or if I do something different with the same circumstance, my life will change. Well, it's been 9 years almost to the date. And every time I don't feel like doing something, change your mindset, change your life. I've literally learned how to do it and build the muscle of the opposite. So by doing that in all the areas that I wasn't happy in my health, in my sleep patterns, in my dating patterns, in my money patterns, in things that I focused on, not going to nightclubs, but going to like transformational seminars,
Mhm.
I completely transformed my life. And it was on the other side of everything I would never do. And now we're here.
Well, and so that leads me into the book you wrote. But before we get to that, I do
Yeah.
want to talk about, because you glossed over it. I know the story, and I think it's such an amazing story. But I want you to, just for the people, unpack how a 12-year sentence got
Yeah.
reduced to 2.5 years.
So I didn't know you can't see the picture while you're in the frame. So I didn't know while I was going through it. However, this is me sharing this story as I connect the dots, looking backwards on my life, and I look at other fragments of my life that model the same pattern. When I was in prison, AKA lockdown, at that time, all these things that I gave power to were taken away from me or removed so I could be reminded that what I was looking for out there was the power that I already had within inside. So when I wasn't focused on women, traffic, time, bills, all these different things, all I had was me and time to think and time to dream and time to read and start and time to improve upon myself. Before I went to prison, I used to say, I feel like I'm in prison inside of my own body. I feel like I'm so far away from where I'm supposed to be. So 2 years goes by and I'm there for an entire year before I even get sentenced. So I'm already planning on staying in there for 12 years because I got busted for smuggling 6.2 kilos of heroin. And so while I'm in there, I was like, you know what? So what can I do in here that I wouldn't normally do out there. And so my brain, you ask yourself different questions, it's going to come up with different answers. What can I do? Well, I stopped using my dominant hand and I started using my non-dominant hand. Well, any scientist will tell you if you use your non-dominant anything, it's going to operate a different part of your brain. When you write with your non-dominant hand, it looks like a little kid. So I just started doing that, and I started activating memories from when I was a child of, oh, I remember when I learned how to write when I was like 4 years old. And I remember this and I remembered, but I also remembered that I used to love to sing every day because it brought me so much joy. And I remembered that I used to love to run every day because it made me feel so much free and it brought me so much joy. I remembered that I loved to draw and paint and all these things that brought little Garrain so much joy. So, in the act of just learning how to adapt again, I also taught myself fluent French. So, I took a French course in prison and I just started building myself up. I read the Bible cover to cover 8 times. I read the Quran cover to cover 8 times. I read 275 books, but like 3 times a piece. And I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading. And my nature started to change who I was being. I wasn't this sulky person that was making himself walking around in shame because of what I did. I was owning up to what I did and saying, how can I better myself from here right now? Well, with all those things that brought me joy, I saw that every time that I would like activate or act on it, it would actually bring other people joy. And then they would start doing things that made them happy. So just imagine a prisoner comes up to me who says, every time you sing, it makes me feel free. So I just start singing to bring him joy. And then I would draw these portraits of, paintings and portraits of other people's family members. They're crying. There's like anything I can do for you. I'm like, nah, in my head, I just want you to be happy. A little voice in my head when we were walking around in a circle, the inmates every day says, Garrain, run. You love to run, but nobody else is running in prison. They're just working out. Sometimes there's stabs, drug deals, fights. They're walking around smoking cigarettes and things like that. Nobody was running. So I got up and start running 38 days. I mean, and within 30 days, it's like 60 something inmates. So I was building up so much value that I didn't know. I was unconscious about it. However, there was less fights, less drug deals, all these different things. I feel that because I embodied all of the characteristics of what I feel freedom is when you honor what's in your heart. That it filled up. You like take this glass and you fill it up. It's eventually going to have a tipping point and then it spills over into the next container. Well, I filled up so much value and love inside of the Garrain container that it spilled over into the prison container. Well, if you fill that up, it's eventually going to spill over into the next container. I feel that just like when a baby grows inside of a fetus, when it's too big for the space, it goes into the next realm called birth. I feel that I gave birth to myself by bringing so much value, regardless of my circumstances, that it gave birth to a free Garrain. And then out of nowhere, they retested the drugs after testing the drugs 3 times. And when I feel free, like the essence of freedom, we retested the drugs. They brought me in the office and they said for the 90 something percent was fake. So for the amount that was real, you've already done the time. You're free to go home. So I feel I let myself out and the universe becomes plastic according to the thoughts that you give the most power to.
It's such a beautiful story. I just love it. Now let's shift to the book.
Okay.
So you obviously you had this encounter experience with the, as you quote unquote homeless guy, because he's
Yeah.
really homeless. Like he's
I feel like it was my angel for sure.
yeah. And so how long, I guess it was a number of years before you actually wrote the book. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because the book, that encounter was 9 years ago. The book came out last year.
Yeah.
It's one of these things where you start asking, somebody will say universe, I say God. And I'd be like, God, what do you need me to do? Who do you need me to be to make the biggest impact in the world? And all of a sudden, when you start getting thousands of messages say, "Hey, you should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book." And I don't listen. You should write a book. And then one day I shared my testimony of where I was really at, like my how my life really was. You think you know me? You have no idea. This is what you know because this is what I told you. However, right now I'm living in my storage unit and I tried to kill myself twice a few weeks ago. And I just basically said, and it's on Facebook and Instagram right now. I said, but in 5 years, I'm gonna be a multimillionaire. I'm gonna retire my mom. I'm gonna put my daughter through college, and I'm just gonna have this most amazing life. I had no evidence in my life at that time. Nobody in my family comes from money like that. So I never grew up seeing those things. And in that moment, when I shared that story, one of the first messages I got was from somebody that said, when I read your story, it made me put the gun down. And I was like, oh my God, all I did was be vulnerable and share my story, like the real one, not the fake one that I want. So people will like me. This one was so soulfully naked that what would my mom think? My cousins, my brother, my this, my that. At that point, I used to go by my stage name that was from the entertainment industry, which was Steph. My middle name is Stefan, but I created Stefan to escape from a past that I was ashamed of. And so I used to go by Steph Jones. And in that moment, and I said, my name is Garrain Stefan Jones. And it was the first time anybody in the industry had ever heard that. So I built two brands. I built up Steph Jones. It was on MTV and all this kind of stuff. And then nobody knew who Garrain was. So I built up another brand called Garrain, and it was authentic. It was raw. It was real. He was fun, unedited, messes up a lot. Like if you read my writings, it's a lot of times it's all over the place. However, because I still have the the stuff.
Hmm.
However, it's just a fun deal. You can still write a book. You can still become all these things that you want to be if you put in the work and effort and energy. And so from that, getting enough feedback to say you should write a book, I said maybe I should listen to the people. If my mission in this planet is to raise consciousness and increase consciousness so that people can identify the power that already lives inside of them so they can use it and produce extraordinary results in their lives. And that's how the book came about. And finally, I was like, damn, the book is already written because these people are hanging on all these words and all this vulnerability. Why don't I put it in a book? And that's how it happened.
And what was the writing process like for you?
Bro, I could write a book on the process that I took to write a book. I tried to pay a ghostwriter and I paid them like $20,000. I got the manuscript back. I was like, I'm known for actually being authentic. Everything about this, nothing about this feels like me. I tried to pay this person, this thing, and I went through this process and I went through every process. And I was just like, man, is this thing ever going to get done? And it was a 5 year process. And then,
No
yeah, it's a 5 year
shit.
process. And I'm going to tell you why. I tried to write the perfect book for every human on this planet.
Hmm.
And here I am. I'm looking at Bibles. I'm looking at Qurans. I'm looking at different books that are just for specific audiences. And if you want to delve into it, you can. And here I am trying to write the perfect book for everybody. And I was like, gee, what is it? My wife, Blair, she has this thing. Whenever you're not getting to where you want to go, she'll say, what's in the gap? What's missing? And I just said to myself, I was like, what's in the gap? What's missing? the spiritual component to my life. I was trying to be all safe. And I was like, well, I'm like a really spiritual guy. I pray. Talk about God all the time and all this, but I want to dress it up in this really cute way. And the book wouldn't happen. And the second I say, you know what? I'm going to write the damn book the way I want to write it. And it's going to be so raw and authentic. I literally opened up the book and said, you know what? My name is Garrain Jones. I'm a follower of Christ and I love trap music. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm like my best friend was Jewish and my other best friend was Muslim, and my favorite uncle was gay. So like I've been open-minded my whole life. That's how I opened up the book. That book took 2 weeks to write when I was myself
Yeah.
and not trying to be everybody else. So that's how the book came about. And it went number one in 7 days in 3 different categories. And I haven't promoted it hardly any.
And it just, this is how I know you, right?
Yeah.
Just showing up in that vein. It's what I think, over the past 2 months that we've known each other, we've seen each other so much. And I mean, what you've brought up for me, and you've referenced it a little bit earlier, is this inner child
Mhm.
work
Yeah.
that I'd scratched the surface with, over the last couple of years. Like, yeah, I get that there's an inner child and there's the this and the that, but I hadn't had that visceral experience of what it actually meant, what it felt like,
Yeah.
who is the inner child within me. And it didn't really get uncovered until, a group that we're a part of, we're communicating on the Marco Polo app, which for people who don't know, it's like video chat basically that you get to kind of share with the group. And one of our brothers had asked if I prefer to be called John or Cal, because John had shown up somewhere, either on Facebook or Instagram or wherever. And my response was, as you know, I prefer to be called Cal. John's still a bit of a trigger for me. Like, and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't. I just thought I would, just say that, and I kind of forget what else I said. And then he came back as a true brother would and said, "Well, tell me about that trigger," rather than just let it pass.
Yeah.
And before I had a chance to respond, because now I'm starting to think about the trigger. Well, why am I triggered by being called John? Well, at that point, I had one of the narratives was I grew up in a small town in Maine, and I was always called John, but my friends called me Cal. So my nickname has always been Cal, but my coaches, girls, they always called me John up through high school. I went away to boarding school after my junior year, and that's a completely different space and energy than small town Maine.
Yep.
And I always had just big plans about what I wanted to do, and I never thought I'd stay in Maine, and just had an idea that this was one of the stepping stones for me. But I had a bit or a lot of shame around the small town boy named John. And so when I went to boarding school, I really took to Cal, and my other nickname was Booney. And so I really
Booney.
I really owned that. And no one really called me John. And then when I went away to college, no one called me John. My coach, all the girls, it was Cal. And so I just thought it was just this way for me to kind of separate that piece of who I was, because I just had some shame around that, because I was comparing myself that at that stage in my life to other kids who grew up with wealth. And it's something that I wanted. I wanted to have all the things. I wanted to have access to that. And for me to kind of try to push away that old identity, I thought was the way to do it. And as you've pointed out in many of our conversations, in doing that, sure, you can try to separate from some of those tougher memories,
Yeah.
which do need to be healed, by the way. But you say, sure, but you also you push away all the good stuff.
Hmm.
And so I was forgetting all the amazing memories I had. And, it really wasn't until, and again, before I could respond, so I'm sitting with this part of John, right? Like, oh,
After
what?
you got the message in Marco Polo.
Yes. And before I can respond to the tell me more about the trigger, you got on and shared your story about owning Garrain and the power it felt
Mm.
to be Garrain and to own that. And I thought, wow, there is something that I really love about this identity, this Cal energy that I've lived in. And so, okay, so maybe it's again, it's not good or bad. It's like, okay, so there's that too. It's multi-layered. It's like anything. So it's multi-layered. And then another brother gets on and tells the story. I forget exactly where it came from, but it may have been from the Bible. But he talked about, in essence, that our mother gives us our kind of our first name, and then our tribe or we, right, as individuals, give ourselves like who we become. So we really own that. And so I felt like there was something really sticky about that felt really good. Like, yeah, like John was the name my mom gave me, and Cal is really who I feel like I am. But what if I was able to integrate those two things?
Mm. John Cal or JC or anything like that. So it's like the best of both worlds.
In your work has been so deep into that space. And so as we kept finding ourselves in the same energy orbit, whatever you want to call it, it kept coming up and I kept getting more insight into what I was experiencing. And as I was doing that, I was reorienting my life around joy without having the language yet that you would provide for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, I'm creating this thing on Learn Ventures, which is an investment vehicle, so to speak. And I've been investing for 20 plus years in little startups and different things, but it always felt like I was, well, let me back up. There was an abundance piece that I've always had, but it was always shrouded in this shame and guilt that I didn't feel like I deserved it. So
Mm.
when I would accumulate wealth, when I would accumulate relationships, I never quite felt like I deserved it. And so I would give it away. And I would
It's
give
that
my,
unworthiness feeling.
and I never understood it. My boundaries were for shit. Someone wants to have coffee with me or someone wants to do, and I say yes, even though I don't really want to because I didn't have the boundaries. I didn't
Mm.
own that abundance. And what I was finding through this period, really from let's call it mid November until today, is the power in owning all of that.
All of it.
And you can't just trick yourself into own. You can go through the practice like, okay, I need to set up the boundaries, but you need to go through the healing
Yeah.
of that inner child,
Hmm.
of the wound. And it's something that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like loving all of those versions of myself. And one of, my closest friends, Boyd Vardy, has been on this podcast. And one of the things he said to me is I always had this weirdness around myself as a trader in Chicago. I felt like that energy just I felt a little shame around it.
Hmm.
And
I can see that there's something still there for you right now.
it's just hard, and he said, there's real medicine in there for you. When you can learn to love that version of yourself, that's your
Oh,
medicine,
yeah,
right?
bro.
So it's all the same stuff. Like the more we try to push away that shadow work, whatever
Mm.
you want to call it, it comes back and it comes back with a
It'll
vengeance.
keep coming back. You can move to Pluto. It will find you, bro.
Yes.
If the freaking Martian that looks just like the person you keep trying to escape is gonna be like, "Neener, neener, nee," it will find you because wherever you go, you still got to take yourself with you.
Do, and you can deny that for only so long
Yeah.
with distracting and numbing with alcohol, drugs, work, can be physical fitness, it can
Yep.
be meditate, it can be anything taken to that extreme. And I did all those things. Um, but what happened, and it almost felt like it happened overnight, everything that I wanted to be involved with from a financial investment perspective came through the lens of, will this bring me joy? Is this fun for me? Is this fun for little John
Mm.
to be involved in this? And if it's not, then it's a no, because these are my resources. And when I give them away, and I give them away with this lower energy,
Lower vibration.
that's what happens with the investment. It sours the investment.
Mm. Yep.
And I didn't realize that until I started to look back on all those places where I gave away investment because I felt guilty. Like, I've got all this money, I might as well invest 50,000 here or do this or whatever. This is a friend, or this seems like a cool idea, or I don't want to miss out on the next big thing.
Got it.
How many of those I pissed
FOMO.
away? Yes. I don't have that anymore. I'm very much grounded in that. But through all this work and through being intentional with it and being vulnerable with it and sharing it, what happens is, in a moment, I'm having a meditation here. It's the middle of December. It's December 15th, as it turns out, early in the morning. And a few days prior, Peyton and I started to unpack some of our wounding in our relationship. And I was able to just show up in a different way and really hold space and really own how I have been, and just recognize. And I had said to someone the night before, I said, I feel like I've really healed this childhood wound of guilt and shame. I really feel like I have. But I said, there's something around sexual shame that I can't put my finger on, but I know there's something there.
Mm.
I just know there's something there.
Yeah.
And just putting words to that and putting that out there, days later in a meditation, it came to me in
Mm.
an instant where my childhood sexual trauma was. And it wasn't, woe is me, I can't believe this happened to me, the victim, any of that. It was, I just saw it for what it was. I saw it was someone who was doing the best they could, who was wounded themselves and didn't have the tools to share what he wanted to share with me. He was really stepping into a father figure role, and I was just too young to understand what he was sharing with me.
Clear.
And from that moment, it's almost like I split off, and everything became very sexualized. And the way I looked at women became very sexualized.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that missing piece of the sensual nature. And, Peyton and I have talked about different things like sex magic and, tantric and this and that. I'm like, I'm interested in all that, but I don't feel like I can tap into that part of me right now because there's something blocking it.
Mm.
And I feel like when I saw that sexual trauma for what it was, I was able to heal it in an instant. It doesn't mean I don't have work to do. I still have work to do around, shifting from sexualized to centralized and what that actually means. But to be able to identify it and it's no longer a blind spot was massive for me. And it was all because just stayed on this track of, okay, this is all medicine. Like Boyd said, like that loving Trader Cal is real medicine. Like you shared with me, like, owning that piece, that little John version, that's my medicine. So
Yeah.
just staying in that work
Mhm.
has been amazing. So anyway,
Thank you for sharing that. That's some beautiful, that's a beautiful way to articulate things that you've been growing through.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, on to some other fun things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we've been sharing together.
Yeah.
Sports cards.
Oh yeah.
The very first night we met,
Yeah.
we're at dinner, this long table, and you start talking about sports cards.
Well, Justin was talking about, they were talking about Bitcoin and all that other stuff. And I was like, well, I got a blockchain card that I sold for like, $15,000. And people, all of a sudden, everybody was like, a sports card? And then that's when you perked up and I started getting into,
I came down to your end of the table. I'm like, I need to hear this. What?
I'm talking about sports cards and how my mom threw away my LeBron James rookies, Tom Brady rookies, like freaking Michael Jordan rookies, and to make myself feel good about how bad I felt, I invested, you know, six figures into cards.
And that's the key word there, because I think I want to help
Yeah.
reorient people. It's you've been very careful. Whenever you talk about this, you've invested. You're not buying cards. They're just going to sit on the shelf.
Yes, no.
Today, sports cards have become, guys like us, art for
Yes,
us, collecting
absolutely.
art. I know this, I'm taking
Yeah.
it from the Gary V video you sent me, but,
Yeah.
and we're also having kids that are into sports and into sports cards. So it brings us back into that game.
Right back into that, call it the field of joy. And it's just something that I love to do. It's like my wife, she loves cards and crystals, not my thing. However, when she talks about them, I do my absolute best to show up for the things that she loves. And then one day, my wife said to me, she was like, when are you going to invite me to the card dealership? And I was like, you'd come? She was like, yeah. And she's like asking about Zion Williamson and all these different cards and things. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so in love with this woman. She was speaking the language of like little Garrain, who used to love to like collect. But it's important that I say investment, because either I'm investing in happy or and typically when I invest in what makes me happy, it brings joy to other people. And somehow, I don't know how this works in the science of how things works, but when I invest in my own happiness and that then brings joy to other people, somehow or another, money starts following me. I don't know why, but maybe money's a magnet for joy.
Yeah.
It just happens. It's one of those things where the happier I am, the feeling is the secret. The happier I am, that's the person that I get to bring to everything that I do. And when I'm in these podcasts and interviews and things like that, and then somebody else hears it, it's like, man, I want to hire this guy, $20,000 an hour to come speak at my company. I heard him speaking and it's something about him. It's that. There's melody inside of everything. Like you knock on that wood, you knock on this couch, there's a tempo inside of everything, and every single thing that is made of substance, matter, has a specific sweet spot when it comes to toning. You can blow in that glass and it'll go "Hoo." You can listen to a car and it goes "Rrrr," but you can make that sound if you can find the tone of joy, because the tone of joy, which is a remnants of love, is inside of everything. If you can find the joy inside of everything, everything now becomes a reflection of the joy that you have within yourself. And money is energy
Mm-hmm.
that responds to the magnetism that you have within and the value in which you see yourself. And I'm not talking about the money that you force yourself to make or that you overcompensate to make. I'm talking about the money where you don't expect for it to come, and these random checks and these random opportunities, and then it's like it's almost like it's beating the spiritual door down to say, I want to come hang out with you too. And this is something that I've learned over time. You actually don't have to force the door down. You can actually be inside of your own resonance. And if you're tapping into the field of joy, and if you see the joy inside of everything else, you got your fair share coming. I don't know when, but you'll have your fair share coming.
Yeah, you need to, as Joe Dispenza says, you need to forego the how and the when and just allow for it to unfold in its own time, in its own way. And that's what I've loved about this. For me, I've tapped into that source of joy, and it's been the filter for the way I move through life. And
Yeah.
everything can be fun. Everything can bring joy. Doesn't mean everything's easy
Right.
in that sense, but shit gets really hard and complicated when we put our own judgment on it and we
Yep.
start to control for, external forces. What can we control? That our seeking, our connection to ourself, which then when we tap into that intuition, is this fun for me? Again, like, can we just go back? Is this fun for me? Is this something that I absolutely have to do? Like, maybe that's the first question. Some things you absolutely have to do.
Yeah.
Aside from that, can you develop boundaries strong enough? And again, once you have this source of joy at your fingertips, there's no developing boundaries. The boundaries are just there.
Absolutely.
But until then, you do have to develop them. You have to get the reps in because you're still working on it.
Absolutely.
If I can use that joy as my North Star, everything becomes super simple because there arguably aren't maybe a ton of things that fall into that category. So you get very clear on what your yeses are,
Mhm.
especially, I mean, I'm speaking about investments in particular. There's like a lot of cool investments out there, but if I don't resonate with the founder, if I don't think that person is someone that I really connect with, then it's a no, because that trickles down to the energy of what's being created.
Absolutely.
Can I evangelize this thing that I'm investing in? Would I share this with everybody if I had no money involved? If the answer is yes, okay, then I'm interested.
Absolutely.
But if the answer is like, I don't know, then I'm out. I'm out. Right. And
Yeah. I want to share with the story. So, as my boy Chris, when I was living in my car and I was just like sulking, I'm like, it's never going to happen for me. I don't understand. He said, come over to my house tomorrow. I went over his house the next day. This is why I was still living in my car, still $200,000 in debt, just trying to figure out life. He said, write down everything you love to do. He said, write a list of 10 things that you absolutely love to do. And then when you're done with that, write a list of 10 things that you're really good at. And then I wrote down 10 things that were like, I love to sing. I love to motivate people. Like, I love to make smoothies. I love, you know what I'm saying? I just wrote these things that just when I think about them, I just start smiling. And he said, write some things that you're really good at. I was like, I'm really good at evoking people to like believe in themselves. I don't know how I learned this shit. I'm just good at it. And I'm just really good at it.
yes, you
Um,
are.
and and I wrote these things down, and he said, do any of them coincide? And then we found something that was in, health and wellness and motivation and like working out and things like that. He was like, if you find anything that is remnant that's even close to that, you'll be closer to what sparks joy inside of you. And he said, eventually, it's eventually going to involve in something that you're going to get paid a lot of money for, where you don't feel like it's work. He was like, but you got to earn your stripes first.
Mm.
So there's a difference between two people who work at McDonald's. One of them is going there to work to get minimum wage, and then another one has a big dream of owning his own chain of restaurants, but he's going in there getting the skills, learning customer service, learning this, learning that. Which one do you think is gonna, you see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
he set me up in a way in which I didn't know, because the very first thing that I really said yes to was health and wellness and fitness community. And that's where I learned about personal development and transformation and speaking and leadership. And all of that was something I would do absolutely for free. Because guess what? While I was living in my car, I had a free workout group at the Runyon Canyon, hiking with people up the top and around mountains. And it just brought me so much joy to be in nature. And I just wanted to bring people along the fun with me. They would offer me money while I was living in my car, and I wouldn't even take it. I wouldn't even take it. So the very first opportunity that I got to make money was doing the exact same thing that I was doing for free for 2.5 years.
Mm.
That's how I knew I could do it forever, because it's so easy to do what I love to do. And this is where people make the hugest mistake. They follow what dad wants them to do, mom wants them to do, and they get off in the weeds. But what did you want to do when you were a little kid? And that's where the little kid conversation comes in again. When you were 5, what'd you want to be? You know what I wanted to be? Freaking superhero. And I wondered why life was so hard. Well, name one superhero that didn't have to overcome so much trauma and trials and tribulations to discover their power.
Mm.
I actually asked at 4 years old for the life that I have right now. And I wondered when I was like 5 and 6. I used to say, Mom, how come all these people always ask me for advice? And it seems like something good always happens. It's Bloods and the Crips, and I'll just walk in the center and all of a sudden they'd stop fighting. I'm like, what is it about that? I don't know what the. Stretch that out about 25 years. You see Garrain on stage in front of 50, 60,000 people. Number one best-selling author. Someone's top 1% of the 1%. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, that makes sense. That was my spiritual ABCs. I just had to keep doing it over and over and over and over. And eventually, I'm doing everything little Garrain always wanted to do. And that's where the energy comes from. That's what I want to teach. I want to teach people how to honor what's in their soul and ride that thing out for the rest of your life. It's a fun life.
Dude, yes. And so from a practical sense, right?
Yeah.
We've been doing this work, but and again, before that real healing happens,
Yeah.
it is you get the reps in.
Oh, I did some crazy reps, bro.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's you have to trick yourself almost or convince yourself, like for me, how do I not go on this? How do I not go to this meeting that this person wants to go with because I don't value my own time?
Right.
But I know there's something in me say, why am I going on this call?
Right.
Right. And so you have to kind of play that game for a bit. And what I always tell people is don't go looking for necessarily the wound. Just stay in your work, whatever it is, the meditations, reading the books, listening to the podcast, going to transformational weekends.
And being around people who embody the characteristics that you want to learn. And you like community really does matter.
Yes.
So you don't have to feel like you're alone. The reason why I broke into cars and houses and I sold drugs, because that's what the people I was hanging out, that's what they were doing. And they were saying, good job, good job, good job. I didn't know any better.
Yeah, more affirmation.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then I got around to wealthy people who were goal driven, who were up to something in my life. And I got around that community and that's all I saw. And then guess what they said? Good job, good job, good job. And then boom, I was living the same lifestyle as them. And so, yeah, man, it's very valuable. But from a practical sense, I want to share something. You ever watched And this is going people who watch this is gonna be like, shit. It was going good because I was so motivated. Now I've got to do the work. So when we tell you you've got to do the work, now it gets real. Remember Karate Kid whenever he was doing wax on, wax off?
Yeah.
But he didn't know that he was learning the same skills in another arena where he wanted to learn karate. So there was an
Mm.
area where he was like, "Man, Ralph Macchio was like, you've asked me to wash your car, wash the windows, it's wax off stuff, stupid bullshit and whatever." And then all of a sudden, Mr. Miyagi says, "Show me, sand the floor." He goes, "Sure." And then all of a sudden, he starts doing all these moves in karate by learning a discipline in humility, sustainability, patience, coachability. He started learning this and the moves. So, what I'm about to share is the wax on, wax off, so that you build the staying power and the confidence and the willpower and the fortitude and the consistency and whatever it takes to move you through. Because the only way out is through. You don't go around the mountain, you go through the mountain. That will move you through any trial or tribulation. There was a girl named Tess. When I was in seventh grade, I hit her over the head with a backpack. Did not think that anything of it. It's 30 years later. I'm like, of course she doesn't remember, but I'm going to hit her up on Facebook. And I said, "Hey, Tess, I was stupid when I was a little kid. I just wanted to apologize to you for what I did. And I hit you over the head with the backpack." She read it, didn't respond. And then I went on public Facebook page and I said, kids do things when they're, stupid things when they're little. I just wanted to publicly apologize for Tess. I hit her over the head with a backpack. All of a sudden, 2 seconds later, she says, "Can you please remove that? I'm in tears right now, right now." And I was like, people hold on to stuff for that long? And then she said, one, why did you do that? Two, what about me made you do that? Three, same thing is happening to my kids and I don't know what to tell them. And I was like, holy crap. So I apologized to her. And then in that moment, I took a piece of paper and I wrote down 250 names of all the people, women that I cheated on, just shady shit that I did from the past, girls who I smacked on the behind and stole their gum when I was 5. All the people that I'd ever done had held resentment towards, anything towards, and anyone who'd ever done anything to me. My goal in those 250 people was to first forgive myself for being so hard on myself over the years, and then apologize for any resentment that I held, even if it was their fault, any resentment I held, anything that I did. And then after that, I said, and I'm just grateful that I get to be this person to share this. And I want to create the possibility, to just have a free flowing relationship with nothing in the way. I did that. And I didn't do it the easy way. It's like, "Oh, now I'm just going to send a text message." No, I called the most difficult people. I called my daughter's mom and I called my daughter. My daughter didn't want to talk to me. And I said, "I'm creating the possibility for us having a fun, loving, free, open, loving relationship where we're learning from each other." And she hung up in my face. Well, right now we have a fun, loving, free flowing relationship where we're learning from each other.
Mm.
Because I created the possibility, I was focused on what was pulling me forward instead of recreating the past of my childhood traumas. So, but you got to go to the root of it in order to heal from the root. Because if you pull a weed from the top, it'll grow right back. You got to pull it from the root. So I went back after I apologized. It gave me the strength to identify the deepest, darkest areas in my life where I had was impacted told myself a story and allowed that story to run and change my life. So from from the mind and the eyes of the little kid, once I apologize and once I forgive myself, and I'm like, well, where did this start? Where did this come from? Where, like, that didn't just happen. Where did that come from? Why was I stealing at this time? Why did I break into Taylor's house? I apologized to her. She hasn't talked to me since then. But as I was doing all of that apologizing, it also built up the strength to forgive the two men who murdered my father. And I felt the biggest sense of freedom. And I got off a stage, 4,000 people. Some guy kept staring at me. And as I was sharing, in this moment, I forgive the two men who murdered my father. This guy walks up to me and says, I want to apologize. I said, for what? He said, 20 years ago, I went to prison for murdering, for murdering somebody. And I just got out today. But because I saw what freedom looks like, I was going to go kill the guy who snitched on me. And I just want to thank you because I'm going to let him go. And I want to apologize on behalf of those two men who murdered your father. And in that moment, I received closure. That gave me the strength to be able to walk into any room, into any door, close any deal. Because if I can do that work, I can do anything that I deem to be hard. Yeah, bro. And I don't let that shit, I don't let resentment, that energy of resentment, I forgive easily. I don't let that sit in me because the only person that's hurting is you.
Yeah. That's that old drinking poison and
Oh, yeah.
wanting to affect someone else.
Yep.
It's just, we do it all the time.
Yeah. So I completely let go of the two men who murdered my father in cold blood. And I wish nothing but the best for their family. And it was always different. When I let that go, all these things start coming into my life. It was almost like when I cleared this, more joy start happening. More positive people start coming into my life. More money start coming in. I was like, yo, I do this, this happens. So all that leads me to believe is anytime you make a decision, anytime you have a prayer, wish, desire, anytime you have something good going on, it unlocks the equal of its resistance. Either that's sent to crush you or to test you to see if what you want is what you really want. Well, I went through the resistance first. So on the other side of that was all the good stuff.
And you got to stay in the resistance. That's the hard part.
If you want to keep growing.
That's the dark night of the soul that they talk about, right? It's when you're in it, it's challenging. It's hard. It doesn't feel like it's going to end sometimes,
Yeah.
but that's the work.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it doesn't mean that your whole life has to be hard.
No.
It's those are the moments that make us who we are, right?
Yeah.
It's can you just accept what's being given to, it's this gift of, again, it's our medicine, and it's only through that wound. And when that wound is healed,
Mm-hmm.
we become the wound. For me, I've always loved the idea of the wounded healer,
Mm-hmm.
because we've heard stories, we've been coached, we've been talked to by people who haven't been through that journey. They haven't had the experience, but they'll tell you
absolutely.
how
Yep.
the fuck you're supposed to act.
Yep.
It's like, bro, you don't know what you're talking about. You're trying to tell me how to be a millionaire, and you're, barely
Yeah.
got a pot to piss in.
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
Yeah.
And you can feel it in the salesmanship and all that. But when someone has gone through that shit
You know.
and they come through the other side,
Yeah.
you still need to go through your own experience, but there's real medicine for you there as well.
Absolutely.
That's what and again, that's what one of the things I've loved about our relationship is I think we've we've had a lot to share and reflect back to one another. If you can hear that, that's Petunia.
Y'all, John Cal has a pet pig named Petunia that just walks around the house. It's the funniest thing in the world. Now he's chasing the mailman.
Yeah, Kathy, our mail person, she always brings treats for the dogs.
Uh-huh.
And Petunia got real keen to it, so she's been going
Wow.
out every time. Now, when the dogs see her, they're barking incessantly. So Peyton, thank you, Peyton, for taking the dogs because they would have been freaking out right there. But Petunia, that I've never seen her do that. She saw the mail truck come through our driveway, and you heard that shit.
Yeah. Still there right now.
She's there like, son of a bitch, she's coming back. She never got to drop me off my treats.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to go back for a little bit about the cards.
Okay.
Because I think there's more to unpack there. And I'll just speak for me in particular. One of the kind of major benefits that I've experienced in this is the depth of the relationship with my son, Jake.
Yeah. It's so cool to watch.
And
him.
you've been there. You've been, through this whole experience with us. And you had brought this up to me, like, this is something that, you can share with your kids or whatever. Like, Jake was the one because Jake loves basketball. Basketball cards are the ones that are, kind of the best investment, right? Yeah. I don't know much about basketball. I don't follow it much anymore. I do now. But Jake follows it and he knows everybody. He knows all the players. He knows the kids who are coming out of high school into colleges. Like he's tapped in. So he brings that gift to our partnership in this, right? I certainly bring all the capital. I get to teach him about investing.
Yeah.
I get to teach him about entrepreneurship.
Yep. And
through that lens, because I invested in a company recently that I was kind of showing him some of the numbers and what the sales look like. And this is this. And he thought it was interesting, but we start talking about cards. He gets his hands on those things. And when we went to the card shop and we bought the basketball cards and we bought the
Prism football.
So anyway, we open up this box. You got a box. We got a box.
Yeah.
We're opening up the cards. And right before that, we were talking about, because we're on basketball cards, but we're like, let's get the football cards. And you're like, it's all about the rookies.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Justin Herbert for the Chargers. And Jake was like, yeah. And Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And we were watching him last year in the national championship game. He was absolutely balling. Yeah. And this year he's just been, he broke all the rookie records, right?
Yeah.
And so he mentions him, and sure as shit, and again, he's been swinging the hot bat, pulling cards for us. He pulls that, what was it, Justin Jefferson?
It was a Justin Jefferson gold vinyl to 5. And that is easily $1,400 card. So it was just like the second pack he opened up, and it was just really cool to see that.
Yeah, and just to give again reminder for everyone, these are like I think the box costs $1,700 or something like that. What was that?
No, the box was $1,200.
Oh, so that was $1,200.
Yeah.
So that box is $1,200. It's an investment.
Yeah.
Right. It's like gambling. It's like a lottery ticket, and you open up the cards, or you can hold on to the box. As you said, they will increase in value. They've shown to increase in value over time. The idea is like, what are we going to pull? And he pulls a card that's worth more than the box we paid for.
Absolutely.
And that's the joy. And
it was so cool.
So
and
cool.
The smile on his face, he's just like, yeah, man, I just pull hot shit.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That was really cool.
And so then, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the blockchain card, because we just pulled the one recently in
the Zion Williamson. It's a premier patch signature. Yeah.
And so again, just to remind people, this is a blockchain card. So there's no physical card that you can get your fingers on.
It lives online, and you are the owner, and no one can have it unless you give them the serial number.
And these things, are worth a
Yeah.
lot.
So right now that car is about $5,000 or $6,000. It can easy. I've seen some that are like 50,000 for a digital card where it's not physical. There is a buyer. It's like there's buyers for Pintos and there's buyers for Rolls Royces. There's buyers for digital cards. It's like, and that market is growing as well. Doesn't make sense to me. Like it doesn't even inspire me. However, if I get one, I'll do something with it. Like,
Yeah. And what I
yeah,
love about it, and I was sharing with you the other day, is I feel like it's one of those novelty pieces, right? Because there aren't many. I mean, they have some like relative to the entire um,
set.
set.
Yeah.
There aren't many of them,
Mhm.
right? Relative. But as people start to adopt that as a real asset, and it
Because
won't,
of blockchain and Bitcoin and everything that's just like rising.
yeah, and it won't be necessarily guys like you and I, because it's like a different generation. It's the younger generation
Yeah.
who has the money and they want the novelty of, look, I paid this much for this fucking car that you can't even touch. You just
Yeah.
look at it on my computer screen. And so I think once that gets adopted by more, there's more demand for it. I see those cards potentially being a real
Yeah.
asset. And I do
It
think
makes
that
sense to me.
eventually, as people adopt blockchain currency, right? The
Mhm.
Bitcoin and Ethereum as
It would
a,
change the paradigm even more.
yes, start to adopt that more. And so that feels like a nice long-term hold. Um, I don't even know, like, geez, just selling cards. It's just that I don't love the process. I know the local car dealer takes a huge cut, dude.
Yeah, man, I wouldn't even go that route. Honestly, I would get you one of these little kids or something like that that want to make some money and, just hook them up and things like that. And they just know it so well and have them do everything.
Yeah.
I I'm too busy creating stuff in the world to just for you shining the cards and doing this and then mailing it out. I'd rather pay some. It's like a sports card assistant.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's like once me and my wife get into our house and things get settled, then that's what I'm gonna look for because I have so many valuable cards, and there it's in 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 a small amount of cards is well over $800,000. And that doesn't, but that's just in the cards that are $1,000 a piece and over.
Yep.
Outside of that is so much more, but it's like, it's pretty cool. Put in 100 something grand, get 800 something back, but it's like you can go on eBay and see the value. And it's just like, it's the little kid in me is like, oh my God, it's so cool. It's so cool. So yeah,
And they keep going up.
they keep going up. Like that case of Prism 1920 of Prism basketball. You got for 42. That thing is like you got for 42K, 42K. That thing is like $50,000 right now. And you just got it.
A month ago. Yeah.
So just imagine. Because every year is not gonna be that way. This year, not gonna be that way because it's all about the rookie class. Now, you got to understand, you got Tyler Hero, you got DeAndre Hunter, you got Cam Reddish, you got Zion Williamson, you got Ja Morant, there's so many. This rookie class is so loaded, the value is there.
Yeah.
This new rookie class, they got a couple of good guys, and they're banking on LaMelo Ball. He's good, but he's not. It's not like a Ja Morant. He's like a popularity contest, but he's like really good. But he's not going to carry that class like the 19 guys that are going crazy right now.
Yeah.
He's good, but he's gonna be a really great player. But like you invest in maybe 3 or 4 guys, but it's not gonna be like 20. So the from what I'm seeing, compared to the rookie class from last year, the 2021, 2020, 2021 Prism basketball it's not going to hold the weight as 19 and 20. I tell everybody invest in 19, 18, 19, 19 and 20 to get the best bang for your buck. Cause you got Trey Young that's balling out of control. You got Luca that's balling out of control. And then there's these other players that are just, it takes a couple of years for them to be integrated into the NBA. But those are for right now, your best bet. And if you can't afford their rookies, get their second year.
Gotcha. And then what about, okay, guys, let's say guys my age in their 40s who have cards from long ago. When do those cards start to really pick up value again? Let's call it from the 90s. Let's say they collected in the 90s.
The wax card era, you're not going to really find much there unless you've got some crazy autograph in the best possible condition and things like that. But the only guys in the 90s whose career wasn't tainted is King Griffey Jr. There's more people, but it just the new school people that are collecting don't know anything about that.
Right.
And the guys that are collecting basketball right now are investing more in the players that are right now. So it's like it hasn't made that jump. However, if somebody has some kind of 30 for 30 or some kind of documentary like Michael Jordan had his Jordan, and then people are exposed to how great they were, then it's a different story. But I don't really see that happening. So the 90s era, you got to look for who is like the big time Hall of Famers, like big time, because those who had names back then, the name didn't really hold weight.
But what about this? So we're arguably on kind of the front end of this wave of cards, right? So I just got into the game a month ago.
Yeah.
Like more guys like me getting into the game who have an affinity for the nostalgia of those cards. Do you anticipate in 3, 5, 7 years that those cards will actually, not just over time, but like because of we're not necessarily watching the NBA right now, but we remember that Major League Baseball, football, hockey, whatever. Do you see that having a real impact, or is it?
The thing about it, what's so difficult is the product. So back in the day, there was like Upper Deck and all these different things. Well, Panini runs everything. And so it all depends on the product. If that product, like a Donruss or something like that, Donruss was back in the day.
Yeah.
It would hold more weight than something that was hot back in the day. And then that hot product no longer works with baseball because nobody's checking for a product really that's not there unless it's a rare one of one rookie patch auto or some kind of like really super rare card. So people love rare.
Yep.
But then in that wax card era, it's gonna take a hit, and like in a good way, but it's not gonna take a hit like these cards that are right now because the ones who's driving the market is the investors and people, influencers who have like a Gary V or something like that. A lot of the younger generation are paying attention to Gary V.
Yep.
Now, if Gary V is like, get Craig Biggio, start investing, you're going to see a bunch of people investing and then you'll see a spike in the market. However, it's not going to last. It's gotta be able to sustain. Like Jordan's got Jordan Brand. He signs people. So he's got sustainable market value. So it just depends on the nature of the market, what people are focused on and how long they want to focus on it. LeBron James, Prism Silver Lakers jersey from last year got up to $3,000. $3,000 in his 17th year. That card right now is $850 because it couldn't. It was like oh my god, they could win the championship. They win the championship, blah, blah, blah. But then there was so many of them out there.
Oh,
So there's so many different variables that you just pick up along the way, but it's a fun. Here's the thing. One time I invested $15,000 and like a couple of boxes, and I didn't really get much. And somebody's like, "Oh my god, you lost all your money." Da 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 da. Da. I was like, "No, you don't understand. I wasn't doing this to make money. I was doing this to have fun." It's like kind of stinks, but like I'm not gonna be all bent out of shape. But then the next box I got a $52,000 card, and then I showed it, and I was like, "Guess I made my money back." You know what I'm saying? So
yes.
it's a fun game. It's a I'd say a healthier way to to gamble. I've never really been into gambling because that wasn't fun for me. But this one is more like a couple years ago, I was investing in Under Armour and these other things, but I couldn't see it. I would wait for my business manager, financial advisor to come over, and he was like, "Well, here's your portfolio," and da da da. And I was just like, I'd fall asleep at the 30 minutes. Well, guess what? I can watch one game and know what happens to my money. I
Yeah.
could literally see Steph Curry shoot, score 62 points in one game, and then the next day score 30 points. I already know what's about to happen to his rookie cards, which I have 6 of them. You know what I'm saying? I already know they've damn near doubled in value
Yeah.
in a week. So it's like watching my stocks go up. If a player gets hurt, I know when to sell. Like it's a fun way to freaking trade and invest, and it's fun. I think all kids should be taught this form of trading, because if this ever dies out for them, at least they'll have the skill set if they ever want to go into the world that you'd been in, instead of going into the world that you've been
Yeah.
in and you be like your son. It's like, oh, well, it's like you talk to him about cards now, because you got to have your way in. How do you get in the door?
Yeah.
Through the field of joy.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about like stocks and all this. I never knew about that. And I was like, man, I can tell you everything. The way the freaking marketplace breathes. There's like, if you're injury prone, investors are like, I'd rather invest in somebody that's more durable. Zion got hurt in college. He got hurt in this and he got hurt again. However, he's not getting hurt and he's playing. He's playing. He's scared. John Morant got hurt, but it was an ankle thing. So it's a crazy game, crazy fun game. Great way to make money, great way to make friends, great way to play in your field of joy. And I think it's all around a slam dunk when it comes to sports cards if you really want to invest that time and energy.
I love it. All right, let's shift gears one more time.
Let's do it.
We were talking earlier today after our workout about a conversation that you were having with Peyton, and it was similar to a exchange that Blair had with me on a message, and
Yeah.
what um, just what this relationship has meant. Our relationship has meant for each other,
Yeah.
in what the ripple effects are. And I was kind of thinking about it after we were talking, and I'm 49 years old, right? I mean, I met you when I was 49, and to me, it's remarkable that you could say, well, I probably made all my friends at that point, but what this one relationship has meant for me, in my relationship with my wife,
Mm.
and my relationship with my kids, and my relationship to my investments,
Mhm.
my relationship to my free time, and to owning that. And it's just, you just never know. Had you not shown up at that dinner, had we not gone, because we were pretty sure we were going, but we weren't entirely sure we were going. And so much about, I feel like, our relationship, there was so much that was just connecting
Yeah,
in that small group.
absolutely. Yep.
And then we found ourselves at another gathering, and then we were at another
But
one.
we were also in the workshop. We just happened to be partners in that workshop too. And I was
Yes.
like, you know,
20 some odd guys, you and I
yeah,
sit next to each other and we do this work together,
yeah,
which
mhm,
was beautiful because we shared some medicine with each other that we needed to
absolutely.
hear.
Yeah. And then I was in Los Angeles. Nobody knew I was going back home to just have some closure. And I was going and I was just, TMI, I was like on the toilet a little bit longer than I would. So I didn't get to the Culver City stairs on time. But when I got there, because I had just done a cold plunge for the very first time in my life in your backyard at the bunker, and I was posting it on Facebook and tagging you, but I had no service. I was like, damn, I want to tag John, you know. Um we go up the mountain, and when we go up the mountain, you who do not live in Los Angeles, we're at the top of the mountain. I'm like, Cal, I
It-
didn't know you were going to be here.
and so for me, I had flown in that day, it was Saturday, and I was leaving Sunday. I went in to see two friends for one night. I took an early flight out there, got there early, and we're sitting there. The three of us were just having a great hang. And I was supposed to go meet up with a buddy of mine who lives in Venice as well. And we were going to go have a hang, have a walk, coffee, and get to spend some time together. And I was going to come back and hang out with the guys. But I was having we were just in it. We were in such a great one that I texted my buddy Jarvis. I'm like, bud, can we do tomorrow? I'm wide open tomorrow. So we rescheduled. Kevin, who I was staying with, is like, here, I'm going to take you guys to the Culver City stairs. We're like, all right, whatever. We're just happy to be together. We go up to the top of the stairs. I'm like, guys, hold on. I need to make a phone call, which is just not my nature to make a phone call when we're all hanging and we're at the top of these stairs. But there was some guy that I kind of left on the hook from earlier before I left Austin. I was like, fuck, I got to get in touch with Kelly and let him know da 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 da. And so instead of going towards the left, we were going to go back down around the hill. I went to the right because there were less people over there, and I was going to be on the phone, and I didn't want to distract anybody. I dial the number, it rings, he picks up, and then I hear you say, Cal, and I look, I was like, son of a bitch. And
Yeah.
at that point, we had seen each other like 4 or 5 times in a
Yeah.
short period of time, and we were just like, there's some magical shit going on here.
Yeah. It was, and we met, we saw each other, accidental on purpose, saw each other at the top of a mountain that neither one of us knew that we were coming to, in a completely different state that neither one of us knew that we were at. And it was like, why is that? There is a reason. There is something. So
Yeah, and then we sat there an hour and a half, 2 hours,
yeah.
you, your buddy Zach,
Yep.
and then Kevin and Eddie, and talking about sports cards and all that. But what you put language to for me, what I had been experiencing up until then, this was the beginning of December. You're like, I only invest in things. She's like, I've been in commercial real estate. I've done all that and made the money. And I, I only invest in things that bring me joy. And I was like, motherfucker, that's what I've been orienting towards.
Mm.
That's it. And it made perfect sense to me. It gave me more clarity on what was pulling me towards certain things and away from other things. And it gave me that framework to really play in that area. And so,
Mm.
and we unpacked a lot of other stuff
Yeah, bro.
while we were there, but that was so amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Peyton.
yeah, you were here last week. You're about to close on a house. And I'm like, Peyton's going to love that house, love the furniture. Are you going to show her the stuff? And so you went in and we're showing her. And I had a phone call I had to get on, an hour-long phone call. So I'm like, look, I'll see you when you come back. I'll see you whenever. I got to go take this call. I'm wrapping up the call. you come rolling out an hour later and you're like, bro, just had like an amazing conversation with Peyton. And just for me, um, for you to hold space to have that conversation with her, because I think you and I, we talked about it, operate in a lot of the same ways. And it can be challenging to be a partner in that relationship when there's not a lot being communicated.
Right.
There's a lot being assumed wrongly, but on both sides.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate, the conversation that you guys had. And I know you shared with me that there was a lot for you in there as well.
Absolutely. Hmm.
But
Yeah, no, it was really great because my wife and I, Blair and I, we're two very strong-willed people who have built a certain life separate from one another, and you try to put them together, and it's like I have my way, she has her way, and it's like how do we create our way? And it's just like this push and pull and push and pull. And there were some ways in which I showed up that did not support our marriage or Blair. And there was ways in which she showed up that was like vice versa. So the work has been and it's just uncovering why I get triggered or why she gets triggered when I say certain things. And I learned that I respond very well to positive reinforcement, and Blair responds very well to quality conversations and quality time, even though it's like it like she there's this level of conversation, and for some reason it just doesn't come out with her sometimes, well, a lot of times. And I think I was projecting on her that she was going to be a certain way, which completely blocked me from being completely open with my wife. and I just have learned a lot of beautiful lessons, and there was medicine for both of us to we've been in this house journey, trying to find a house for a year now. We've been going for Airbnb and all these different things, and it's like, man, when is it going to come through? Like, we have the money, like what we got that was we were giving power to everything outside of us instead of realizing the power that was already inside of both of us and just allowing that to be the space. So we learned how to find a home inside of our relationship. And it's still it's like a little kid learning how to walk. You get up and fall down, you get up, fall down. However, we found home inside of our love. And now we realize now this is what we get to take to a house. And we were like trying to find house so that we can create home. And universe was like, no, you need to create home now. You're in an Airbnb far away from the city,
you
in the
are.
back roads. It's nothing but like um uh freaking trailer. It's like a trailer park type double wide park. Extremely humble. I'm gonna put you in an environment that you're very unfamiliar with, so that you can see it's not about the environment, it's about the home within yourself. And what it took for us to get through that was the craziest, most beautiful work. It was messy, it was sloppy, but in the end, what we were trying to force once we just said, all of a sudden she asked me a question. Boo, 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 boo. And then it was just this poof. We got our goals done. We got this done. It was the most beautiful thing. And it happened in 20 minutes. Yeah, bro.
Well, the home thing is it's compelling to me because we've been in this house for it's coming up on 4 years now. And it wasn't until recently, over a little before Thanksgiving. I guess my birthday, which is in early November, would have been the first time we really were hosting. And, you know, just for context, things are a little different here in Austin than across the United States. It's a little more liberal with the social distancing.
Mhm.
So the hosting thing here hasn't been a big deal, and no one's been infected at any of our gatherings. Not that that fucking I can't believe I even feel like I've got to qualify that. But
Yeah.
anyway, you know, we've hosted several things, and I mean, since I've known you,
Yeah.
and it's just been different than in the past. It's been this resonance amongst the crowd of people that are showing up, and these gatherings are going later than they've normally gone by a couple hours. And at the end of the night, we're energized. We're not like, oh, you know, this is, you know, that was a lot of work. Or what I found for me is I no longer feel the need to put on a different mask at a different party, or several masks at a party. Given, oh, is Lenny coming up? Say
Mhm.
hello. I can just show up as me,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even mean as host when we're hosting the party. It's like I just get to show up because of the way everyone else is showing up. And I come through the other end of these experiences just feeling so full of love and light, and this community and this tribe that has been unfolding here in Austin. And it's felt like a home. And it
Yeah.
feels like we really just want to open the doors to this community in whatever way we can, to continue to be a place where people gather
Yeah.
and share in that. So we've definitely felt that shift in our relationship under this roof. So it's exciting for us. So
Yeah. That's
I
cool.
feel on some level where you're talking
Yeah,
about.
man. It's just like a flower needs water and sunlight. Humans need love and connection. You take that away, the cemetery is not where you see the most dead people. So you see, walk around outside and you see a bunch of people with something that's died inside of them, and that's a soul that hasn't been fed.
Mm,
And once a soul is not fed, everything else will break down around it. It's like I'm all for feeding souls and waking up souls and loving on souls and connecting with souls. And but that's just me. I'm
hmm.
one of those people that, like, sometimes people like, oh, you're a conspiracy. I was like, listen, no, I'm Garrain. But you got to understand the nature of how I've always lived my life. Wow. You got to understand this. Just imagine, follower of Christ, best friend is Jewish, and I went to temple with him. Other best friend is Muslim, and I went to the synagogue with him. Favorite uncle is gay, hung out with him all the time. I was so exposed to so many kinds of thinking that I was never put into a box. And I got into so much trouble because I would always question why. It doesn't make sense to me. Can you make it make sense to me? What does that mean? What is that? But nowadays, if people say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, like, shut up. Because I'm thinking for myself.
That's it.
I'm thinking for myself.
Because I'm thinking for myself, and it's against the mainstream
Yeah,
narrative.
and it's okay. I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah, I agree. And just for
Yeah.
an editor's note,
Yeah.
you did say your Muslim friend at the synagogue. For all those listening, he meant mosque.
That's what I meant to
That's
say.
right. I
Yeah.
just wanted to.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, all good.
Yeah. At the mosque.
Um, anything else we to uncover,
Um,
or where can people find you?
you can find one, you can get my book.
Yeah, let's talk about the book for a second here.
Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life. It's on Amazon in Spanish and English, in paperback and Kindle. Um, the titles on the back. I just wanted to let the art breathe on the front.
So beautiful.
And it's a book. It's an everyday people's guide to understanding just every the stuff that lives inside of you so that you can have the awareness to use it and potentially produce an extraordinary results in your life. I wrote it very simple. It's a very, very simple read because I didn't write it for somebody who's like the major smartest person. I wrote it for a bunch of people who don't read because a lot of my past friends don't like to read books. I was like, so how can I write something that's so simple, easy to digest, easy to integrate, and yeah, that's what it is. It's out, it's on Amazon, but you can find me. My website is GarrainJones.com, Instagram, Garrain.Jones. And man, I'm at your nearest freaking smoothie shop, where I love freaking smoothies all day long. And I'm excited to be a part of this wave of light bearers, just like paving the way towards just creating a space for people to truly rise up in their power and not be dictated by what, what I think you should do. No, but what you think you should do. And I have this last philosophy I want to leave you with. It's like, become the president of the United States of you. Once you vote for yourself, really, and truly be in ownership and power inside of that, all your decisions, everything that you attract in your life will come with a completely different energy. In your life, the, you will you'll change the trajectory of your life by voting for yourself. I don't give no man, no woman power to determine my legacy, what I'm here to do. Nobody. It didn't matter who the president was. Didn't matter my skin color. Didn't matter where I lived. When I decided I was going to take control of my life and I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, it seems like that's when my life shifted. Let this be an invitation for you at whatever level you are to rise up so you can go to the next level. And let's all do it together.
Perfect. Looking forward to 2021 with you, brother,
Yeah,
and
bro.
many years beyond. I love you, man.
Yeah, bro. Love you too.